In this video, we will be looking at writing algorithms to solve a problem. In this case, we are going to write a function that will iterate through an array and select data accordingly. So, let's first of all look at our problem definition. We have an array of strings called names: John, Stephen, Paul, George, Ringo and Jonathan. It's worth at this point remembering that the index position of John is 0. The length of the array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the array has 6 elements in total. Their index positions go from 0 through to 5. So in this example, the pseudocode useNames function uses the global array names. So we are going to assume that this array here is global. Remember, a global variable has the scope of the entire program. So the whole program can have access to the array names at any point during its execution. The number of names in the array is going to be passed as a parameter to the function useNames. And we can see here, this is the parameter here, p number of names, and it is passed by value. So to remember, pass by value means that the subroutine, in this case the function useNames, has been given a copy of the variable number of names. So this is just a copy of the original length of the array. The function should return all of the names as one big string with a space between each of the names. The function will exclude all names that are longer than 6 characters. So we should expect when we run this program that Jonathan would be excluded as well as Stephen. Stephen has a length of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. So we can see that Stephen and Jonathan would be excluded. So let's now look at the function call. We first of all establish the length of the array by calling the len command, passing it the global array names. The length of this array is now stored in all names. We then call the routine print, which then calls the function useNames, which is defined here, and it passes it the parameter all names, in other words the length of the array. So let's have a look at the code for the function itself. So in this case we are declaring a new string, but the string is empty. So valid names is an empty string. So let's just put a little comment in there. This is an empty string. And we're using a for loop to go from index position 0, which is John, to the length of the array minus 1, which is Jonathan. Remember, the length of the array is 6 and Jonathan is in position 5. We then have an if statement that says if the length of the array names at position index, so in this case we're going to test every single position in the array, if the length of that individual index position, the data stored within that index position, is less than or equal to 6, then we are going to concatenate it to this string here, valid names. So at the minute, valid names is empty. So valid names equals valid names plus the names at position index. So let's take John for argument's sake. So the index position of 0. So it will add John to it, then a space. So this new string, after its first iteration, will store the text John and then the space character. It will then increment index, next index. So index goes to 1, which is Stephen. Now, Stephen is in position 1, but it has a length of 7. So this if statement will fail. Therefore, next index position will go to 2, which is Paul. The if statement will be true because Paul has a length of 4 characters. So we're now saying take the existing string, valid names, and add to it the names at position index. So index is now 2, which is Paul. It'll then put a space character after Paul. So the contents of valid names after this iteration will be John space Paul space. And it will continue iterating through the array. When the for loop is complete, in other words, it's examined every single index position in the array, it will return the new string containing all of the valid names. And it will then print that long string within this print statement here. Now let's look at the implementation of the pseudocode in Python. So here we have names, which is the array. The array has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names in it. Index positions 0 through to 5. The word function has been replaced with the word def. So we're defining a subroutine. We've inserted our colon at the end of the function line. We've inserted the colon at the end of the for loop, and we've used the range built-in function to determine to go from position 0 through to the array length. Now range will automatically -1 from this second parameter, so we don't have to include that -1. Same for the if statement. The if statement is testing the length of the array at a given position. So in index position 0, the length of John would be 4. So 4 is less than or equal to 6, so therefore this if statement will be true. Therefore it would execute this line of code here, exactly the same as it would in the pseudocode. Notice the omission of the end ifs and the next index. They aren't required in Python. We still need our return of the string of valid names. So therefore we can see we are setting our all names variable to the length of the array. We are calling our print routine, which then calls the user's names function, sending it the length of the array. So let's see what happens when we run it. So here we can see it's only printed out the valid names. In other words, names which are 6 or less characters. John, Paul, George, and Ringo.